S9E13 of the Decoded podcast. Spicy Saturday is what we're calling this one. Um, a really good on ramp and in a direction I didn't think it was going to go, but it did.
Can I even pivot off that?
Hmm.
So it's rare. Okay, so myself and a colleague, Jill, we are the elders on the team. I think Jill is close, maybe close to retirement. I'm not that close, but I'm definitely. If you look at the two of us, we are the gray haired elders on the team. So often we'll find ourselves kind of talking, like chatting as and we're laughing about something back in the day. Like we're drawn back to 20 years ago, spec ed 22. Like we start telling these old timey kind of stories about how it was back in the day. Not ever trying to slam anything, but just kind of talking how remarkable it is how things have changed. So and we totally trigger each other with this like niche kind of information that our colleagues, which I think our closest colleague in teaching years might be 15 years, which is still 7 short. And actually I'm younger than Jill, but we are the elders. So it's to this end, when to be confronted with something new, like a new thing, a new challenge, it's kind of thrilling. Like it's kind of thrilling. You're like, oh, and you don't really have a way to figure it out. And it takes you a second to realize that you haven't actually seen this particular thing before. So day's end yesterday, a student walks in with one of their SIA devices. So it's their laptop. And the kid says, I don't know what's going on, but the corners of my computer are doing this weird thing. So one of the fleet, like one of the, so there's different fleets of SIAs that we'll encounter in the school, and they all have different warranty end dates. So depending on when the kid first got their laptop, they kind of come in waves. So I think right now there's probably 3 different fleets that are in motion. And the fleet's just like whatever the school board happened to get a contract for that year. So there's different Dells in the system. They're most of them right now, I think, are Dells. We might have some Asus, but I think they're mostly Dells. So this kid walks in with a Dell, and you look at the actual SIA, and on the 4 corners, 3 1/4 corners, I know there's 4, but definitely on 3 of them and a little bit on the 4th one, it looks like someone's taken a lighter and cooked it. Now, if somebody were to do that, you would see scarring on the outside. Like you would start to see scarring or melting, like if it was an external flame, right? And then the kid showed me, he's like, I don't, and neither one of us, it wasn't one of our kids. It was just a kid that showed up at our office. Kind of the end of the day, it was only Jill and I in there. So you're triaging, right? You're helping whoever shows up at the door. So I'm like, damn, I've never seen anything like that before. And they're on each of the corners, it's probably intentional, this particular laptop, they're kind of rubberized. Like it's slightly soft rubber, just a little bit. It's different than the rest of it. It's like that satiny rubber, you can get like that soft touch plastic. Like it's not really rubber, but it almost feels like it's kind of rubbery. Anyways, that's what the corners are like. And you can see they're all different colors of brown. So I kind of start like, where are you storing this thing? Like I'm thinking maybe you're shoving it in a bag and it's rubbing off like the ink or the dye from a backpack. I'm like, do you have a leather backpack? Because it's kind of like that reddish brownish hue. He's like, no black backpack. It's all that. I'm like, okay. Did you spill anything on it? No. Do you put it in a window where it's always at a window and the corners are exposed? Because that can discolor stuff. No. He goes, and this too. And he shows me his computer and he holds it up. Like this computer in particular can fold around into a tablet. So he holds it flat. And when you look at so he folds down the top underneath. So as I'm looking at it, I can see on my horizon line the keyboard, like straight across the keyboard. And the right side of the keyboard is crested. Like it's starting to actually expand. And I'm like, oh shit. Like if you have expansion, that means that something inside is starting to degrade. My brain automatically goes to, because I look to see, and it's close to where the actual power port is, where you plug it in. And I'm like, if that's the battery expanding, that's not good, because battery expansion, we remember remember back in the day, remember those Google phones that were all blown up in people's pockets, right? Because when they turned on that fast charging, the batteries couldn't handle it. So I turned to Jill. I'm like, oh, so Jill is like, I don't know what that is. I'm like, well, I wonder if the battery's going to explode. And you should have seen the look on her face and the look on the kid's face. I'm like, probably should have said that in my head. I said, when I start to see an expansion like that, it means that something inside is starting to sort of like push up. And that's in the solid state and small state kind of like motherboards and chip boards. Like that's not good. Like you don't want that to have happen. So right away, Jill kind of goes into just kind of low key panic mode. She's like, well, what are we supposed to do with it then? She goes, do we need a metal box. Like we need to put this in. Do I go put on the loading dock? Because now it's like, will it continue to expand and could be a fire? I'm like, okay. I said, I kind of maybe said that too soon. I said, I don't know for sure. Sorry to escalate. The kid has moved to sort of standing in the doorway of the office. Jill has kind of rolled her thing back and I'm holding it. She's like, you better get that away from your beard. I'm like, what are we talking about here? You think it's going to go up and half my beard is going to be gone? But it provided a whole lot of excitement at the end of the day. And I still don't know what she did with it because in the end, it was handed to her. So she was going to put it in for a service call, which any of the certs can if we have the service ticket on the bot. Like you could put in your own kids, you could put in any kids. The process is like you put it in. We have a spot in the school that our technicians come in to work on the stuff. But I'll tell you, it was kind of refreshing to have a tech challenge that it was Bermuda Triangle, buddy. Like we did not know what was going on. I said, you know what? I have the micro tools. I said, I can open it up. We can have a look. And the look on Jill's face, she's like, don't do it. Probably if it had just been me, I would have done it. I would have opened up the bottom, just taken the bottom panel off because they come off so easy, right? There's like six little teeny screws to pop it up and take a look. It was cool. For me, it was fascinating. I said to her, maybe you want to put on the loading dock for the night, right? Just go put it out because it's basically a concrete box, right? It was totally cresting or crowning. It looked like the keyboard.
I've not experienced anything like that.
It's new, eh? New, but you know the reference I'm making, right?
Yes,
like, do you remember when they got there with that fast charging, they got the idea right, but the firmware and the battery, like it wasn't ready for it. So
I appreciate that you're open to these computer situations. I know in my context, if a kid walks in and says, I got a problem with my computer, I just point to the educational assistant responsible for technology. And I'm like, to speak to Mrs. So-and-so. And then when she's not in the room, I just say, you need to come back when she's here because, and you should see there is all like there, if I wanted to dig in, there'd be all kinds of really cool things going on, but I'm like, no, I don't need that in my life. And there's a person responsible for it. So you should see how
we have no one. We have no one. So it's kind of
surprised.
Yeah.
Have a position like that.
I think probably because we probably have, I will make this call. We probably have a more effective tech system than you folks do. We just have more people because we can put in a heat call and we got people there that day and they're in the school, they're fixing I get you have an EA that's kind of trained to do it, but I'm betting they're not trained to actually do repairs on the computers. Right? So they can troubleshoot, right? So the counterspin to that is that many of us are troubleshooters already, and we have a tech team, basically like the geek squad that comes out and will do the repairs right on site, and they're constantly in motion around the board. So within one day, typically 1 or 2 days, that laptop's up and running again. If it has to have something like this replaced on it, a monitor replaced, a keyboard replaced, and they have enough of old tech or like warehouse tech that they can just pull it off an old fleet piece and put a brand new monitor on it. Like they have all that stuff stored. So
That's cool.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that it was just like I said, just kind of I liked the fact that there was something new to see and new based on something that I've experienced. Like she's looking at it and she goes, I don't know why this would be. I'm like, well, I think I've seen something like this before, but in a different context. I felt like I was like a investigator, right? Like in my sort of old memories of the old tech and different tech thing were kind of useful. It didn't help her because it just triggered her. But and the kid left. He's like, okay, I'm just gonna leave it with you for now. Kid went back to class.
Rochelle says, I wish ours need to be sent out.
Yeah, ours are all repaired on site. We have, like I said, we got the team. And good morning, Rochelle. Yeah, we got the
Yeah.
team.
So GK's with us.
Yeah, morning, Gary. So,
RK. GK and RK.
mhm. So it's cool. It's cool. So I don't know where she put it. I hope if we had the steel box, we could just store it in there.
The steel
The
box.
steel box.
Yeah, I don't have anything like that. Kids are like, "Hey, Mr. C, can I?" I'm like, "Nope, I don't." "Yeah, can I borrow a charger?" "Nope, I don't have anything like that." "Can I borrow a Chromebook?" "Nope, I don't have anything like that." Um, so now they learn pretty quick. Well, don't bother asking him because he's not going to help you. And it's like you don't have
Hmm.
to make it so like it's not a conflict. It's not I can't help you. I don't
Yeah.
have the computers. I don't have this. I don't have that. Um, yeah, and yeah, we have one EA that works on that. She's got 2 periods a day, period 1 and period 2, where that's what she's supposed to be working on. Um, but she's still an EA, so sometimes if we've got kids in the room that require a scribe and I can't scribe for 3 kids at the same time, she'll get out of her computer chair desk area and help. But
Yep.
I never ask her to. She looks so she's how do I explain this? She's one of these people that like gets she doesn't just sit in her corner and stay in her lane and ignore everything happening around her.
Hmm.
She is aware of who's in the room. She's got the chart that I have up of the sign-in sheet. So she, if I'm on the phone and a kid comes in, she can sign them in. Like she's very helpful. She's very
Hmm.
good at that. And I appreciate that, but I never ask her to do anything that is my wheelhouse because
Yep.
it's not her job, it's my job. Um, but she is very helpful. And I think it speaks to relationship. I assist her whenever she needs something, she assists me whenever I need something. So it's a good combo. Like I like working in the room when she's assigned to the room. Um, but yeah, man, I don't tell people to do things. Um, but the other day, I don't know what happened. There may have been a miscommunication or something. 3 kids were in the room. They all required a scribe. And
Hmm.
I was like, okay. Um, it was the Roland okay. Make sure everybody who doesn't need a scribe is settled and working. And then I'm bouncing between 3 kids doing my best to provide them with their accommodations. And at one point, the phone rang and I just laughed. Usually I'm pretty fast with the phone, but I'm like, it can keep ringing. This kid's in the middle of explaining this idea that I'm writing down. I'm not going to stop the kids thinking the phone can wait. And if it's important, then I can tell them I'm scribing for 3 kids. So the phone's not my priority. The kids are my
Hmm.
priority. This has come up this week a couple of times. Gary will appreciate this, so will Rochelle. I've been assigned to be in a particular place at a particular time, but people are wanting me to be somewhere else. And I'm like, I can't be somewhere else. This is where I'm supposed to be. And then there's a pause. There's a pause, and the pause is this. The pause is you need to be in that other place. And I'm like, I can't be in the other place. I've been assigned somewhere. This is the problem with a position like mine. You assign me to certain places, but then something pops up somewhere else and you think I can solve that problem or deal with the situation, so you want me to
Mhm.
because you don't want to, either because you can't or you don't want to. But guess what? I'm not coming to help you solve the problem unless I'm given instruction by somebody who has the authority to tell me to abandon this place and go over to this place. And to me, it's black and white, bro. It is black and white. I am where I'm supposed to be. That's where you told me to go. And now you're saying you need me over here. No. And then the no, that's a whole other world that I've said no. But I've done it
Mhm.
a couple of times. Hey, Roland, can you da 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 at this time? No. Why? I'm outside on supervision. Well, did you do it yesterday? No. Why? Because I'm running one of the clubs that you asked me to run. Like, I'm ready to laugh. I'm waiting. I'm waiting for the crowd. What's that called on when you watch a TV show and the crowd laughs, but there isn't really a crowd there?
Canned laughter.
Right. So I'm waiting for the I should probably walk around with one of those little noise dollar store noisemaker things and press it and have the crowd laugh because you told me where to go in the first place. And now you're telling me you want me to be somewhere else, but I can't be in two places at the same time. This
Hmm.
is something I've discovered in secondary that a lot of people do. I see people triple book themselves, and I'm
Yeah.
wondering, why do you do that? Because you can only be in one place at one time. You know how many? So maybe because people are allergic to the word no, they just don't want to use it. I've been using it a lot lately. I literally laughed out loud and said, I'm outside for 20 minutes during the time that you want me to be in this room with this kid. I can't be with the kid. Now, if you send the kid out to talk to me while I'm walking the sidewalk, I'll be happy to chat there. That's where I'm supposed to be. Silence. This, I'm going to drop an F bomb. This fucking silence is unbelievable because it's like they don't want to hear me say no. But to me, I'm where I'm supposed to be unless you change it.
Hmm.
2 days in a row. So now they're like, are you not competent? I'm like, I'm completely competent. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I'm with the club that you asked me to run. And then I'm outside on supervision. I can't be with a kid. I don't know why that's so hard to understand. I don't know why everybody in the building's triple booking themselves.
I've thought about that too. I've thought about that too. I think I think there's a lot of reasons it can happen. Um, I think that it can happen because optics are more important than outcomes. So there's a lot of shared calendaring that can go on, and people have access to calendars. I know in the administrative level, people, and I Gary's welcome to chime in on this. The shared calendars and stuff being put into your calendars, whether it's a parent interview or an intake or a disciplinary meeting or a registration, these things from an administrator's perspective that their feeds are multiple, and it's not always them putting things into their calendars. So I think that. Sorry, I'm going to separate the two. The first thing that I started saying is optics, not outcomes. So there is an element of, we talked about this. Remember our Bob bars, right? We had the Bob bar. We were onto this 2, 3 years ago, this badge of honor kind of idea that busy means efficacy. We now know busy does not mean effective. It does not. I don't think it ever has been. But there's this idea of a cumin that we'd like to see that our calendars are full. There's something that full calendars somehow means success. I think that if we really use our own sort of text elements and our own scheduling literacy against ourselves, we realize that a better calendar is one that has spaciousness and wellness included in it. So we know that, right? Um, and like the opportunity to say no, the opportunity to say why, the opportunity to say now what. right? Or so what? Like to kind of include these things. And it's not a matter of reducing the number. It's not as simple as saying is reducing the number of meetings. It's a matter of instead saying what are the most important meetings that we need to have. And that could still keep the same number, but the ones that are on the schedule are more important. I think also if we take it, go ahead.
I was just going to say I've come to the point where I've said to people, if this changes, then I'll be there. But I'm not going to be there because I'm supposed to be here. So it's one of those, you can tell me where you want me to go. I'll certainly go there if something shifts, but don't expect me to be there because I'm already supposed to be somewhere else.
Mhm.
And it's not one of these, which would be fine too. I'm not sitting at my desk eating my lunch. So it's like, nope, I can't do anything for those 20 minutes because I'm going to be eating. It's not like that. It's I literally have to be in this location at this time. That's what
Mhm.
my schedule tells me. And
Mhm.
you guys gave me the schedule. So those are hard and fast. Like I'm not going to get into specifics, but a meeting I was supposed to have shifted to a time. So I had agreed to the meeting because the meeting was at a time where I was not in a classroom and I didn't
You
have
weren't booked.
supervision. I wasn't booked.
Literally, you weren't booked.
I said yes, but then the meeting had to be changed to a time where I was in the classroom. So they were like, can you meet at this time?" I said no. And then it was like one of those, everybody's looking at each other like, did he just say no? And I'm
Mhm.
like, I'm in class. And then I'm looking at them because now I'm like, do you can release me from the class? That's within your wheelhouse. They're not going to do that though. So it's like, but we need you at the meeting. Well, I can't be at the meeting. I'm in a classroom. I'm supervising the monitoring room. I can't go. I'm the only one in the room. You can make it happen that I can leave, but they don't want to do that. Or, as I told you in Apollo, we don't have anybody to do supervision in that room at lunch. That's unfortunate. And they're waiting for me to say I'll do it. I'm not going to say that because you've given me a fucking schedule that you want me to make happen, but now you need me to run around and do all this stuff that's on your plate. No, you can't have it all. And Chris, I know to my detriment, you've heard, for God's sake, Gary's heard it too. I'm doing everything I can to help as many people as I can all day long. I really am. But it
Mhm.
comes to a point where, no, I'm not volunteering for extra supervision. Especially you got me outside for 20 minutes in the coldest months of the year. Pe- my 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 colleagues chuckle when they walk past me as they're coming into the building. Like, there's Chidiac walking up and down that sidewalk when everybody else just stands in one corner and doesn't move. I'm doing whenever you give me a job, I do the best possible job I can. I don't just stand there, so to speak, which is fine. If other people want to do that, that's on them. I don't want to do that. I'm not doing well these days with that stuff. I'm not doing well with the, hey, we changed the meeting time. We
Mhm.
need to meet at this time. Well, unfortunately, I can't do that today because you picked a time where I'm in a room that you assigned me to. And you don't want to pull someone else into be in my space. So I can't go. I don't want to play this. I don't want to play the, well, okay, and then I go make deals with people. I'm not making deals with anybody. I'm going to be in that room and I'm missing your meeting. Have it without me.
So for me, the shift that I've made in my thinking is that if the time changes and I have another thing that's scheduled during that time, the two parts to it are saying quite clearly, like it's not only like if someone changes the time in my brain, the switch that has to be triggered is that I'm not needed or necessary for this meeting, or I'm not as necessary or needed as I thought I was. And that allows me an access point to kind of just breathe and say, here are my notes. You folks take it and run with it. And not for me, because one hand of this, if my schedule is full or it's organized in a way that works best for me to work best, then the irony is I have 15 minutes here, 7 minutes here, 10 minutes there. I haven't gone so far as to say if I got that 10 minutes, that's when I'm eating my lunch. But it can be very kind of weird looking, my afternoon, that's sort of professionally managed time because of how on the fly opportunities pop up and scheduled opportunities. And there are meetings that I haven't been a part of um, that were scheduled because I was already pre booked with something. There are meetings that they moved, they did work, and then didn't work. And there's even meetings that I made a mistake in putting it into my calendar and missed the meeting and had to fess up and say, I am so bound to my calendar, which is not actually, I'll finish. I'm so bound to my calendar that the fact that I put that in on the wrong day, I didn't even think twice that I was supposed to be in your classroom the day before. Now, I don't use my calendar as a reminder tool. And I've had to separate that out as well. My calendar is not a reminder tool. It's a visual graphic organizer of how I've committed my time. I use a separate reminder tool. Literally, like if there's things that I need to be reminded to do, I will put that into there. Now, do I sort of look at the calendar and see where I would need to be? Sure. That's my sort of like, I guess you could argue that's the reminder tool. But I don't lean on my calendar. I don't check my calendar and sort of say, oh, 15 minutes from now, I have a thing coming up. I use a reminder tool to remind me. So sometimes I have to enter things twice. And what I've found is that I need to almost think of reminders and calendars as two separate tools because I could be booked into a meeting, but what I can't do, so I get booked into a meeting that's an hour long, someone else schedules it. I will set a reminder that I need to leave in 30 minutes because I have something else I want to work on. So this is where sometimes other people that have access to my calendar, there can be some overlap. So I need the separate reminder tool to sort of tell me in moment to moment where I need to be. And then the actual calendar is kind of like just the big broad strokes of the day. And I have that in there. With my students as well, I've turned on the appointment feature in Google Calendar and set up the 15-minute, basically from period 3 on, 3, 4, 5. Students can book in 15-minute increments. If it happens to be during P4, which is when I open up my classroom for help, they just come to that room, which is also my students' lunch. If it's during period 3 or 5 and they're in class, I know I have to go looking for them. But what that means is if a kid, if you decided during your P3 math class that you wanted me to drop in, you would click that 15-minute window right there, and I would know I need to come to your math class to help you or to check in on you. And if it's something in the class, I'll stay. If it's something you just need to talk to me, I'll pull you out of the class. We'll have a conversation. And I've kind of trained all my kids to be able to do that. So even their scheduled appointments populate that calendar too. So I'm very regimented in that way. And I no longer sort of carry any sort of after the moment anxiety if a meeting gets moved. And dude, this is like CAS meeting. This is like some sort of student success meeting, a parent meeting. If it moves into a zone where I have something else, it's only in my calendar because I deem it to be important. So I'm sorry, parents, or I'm sorry, children's aid. No, I do not have time to do that. And I do think that I'll go back to the badge of honor bar, that probably more of our colleagues need to operate that way because the bigger picture here is that our actual efficacy becomes so diffused because we can't even be in the meeting that we're in. I mean, you only have to go to any sort of conference, and I think this speaks to workload. Go to a conference where you know that there's mixed individuals at that conference, and look around the room as the key speaker is sort of speaking, and you will see the people that it's impossible for many reasons for them to be present in the room. There's some people checking their phones, is what we do. They could be on their phones, but I've seen people on their phones for the whole keynote. I also know that, it is often administrators that are are expected for optics sake to be at these conferences and these meetups, and they have to spend most of the time on their laptop because they're double booked without even being double booked. They're just constantly get this flow, right, of questions that are going on. So what ends up happening is that, let's say, edu, capital edu, thinks that we're cracking off efficiently and we're making, the best of everything, when in fact we are so splintered in our sort of connectivity that even a meeting that, could probably be done in 15 to 20 minutes if everybody is effective, updated, and arriving in a good mindset. We have these meetings that are an hour and we have wasted time. Part of that wasted time is because we come to accept that nobody in the room is actually present as much as they need to be. Like it's become like a feature, not a glitch. It's a feature. And it's unfortunate because I think this is how you get people asking you to be in two places at one time. And they start negotiating that conversation by, well, couldn't you just, and you're like, as soon as you start to say those words, you're asking the other person to use magic that is entirely at a deficit to them. Couldn't you just? It's not grounded in logic. It's not grounded in effective practice. You're asking that person to compromise. And I've kind of the last few years completely walked away from it because my pat answer is no. As you presented to me, no, I couldn't just do that. If they dare to ask why, 20 minutes later, they're like, shit, man, I wish I didn't ask why, because I'm still explaining why it's a problem. So
I totally get what you're saying. And I want to add that in the request that was made of me to be somewhere at a time that I couldn't, unless somebody with authority made it happen, after I was done my supervision and I found a hole, I found a gap of time that was free. I went and I did some follow up with the original situation that they wanted me to be in on. So it was like for me that's important that I understand that there are things that I am supposed to do in my role. So I don't abandon them completely. I just say it can't happen at this time today unless somebody who can make this change makes the change. And guess what? As I'm talking to the people that can make the change, they didn't even attempt to try to make the change. So that tells me the same kind of thing you're saying. Obviously, it doesn't mean that much. It means more that I'm outside on supervision than in a room down the hall with this one kid. That's what it tells me after, listening to you and what you said about priorities and timelines and stuff. Obviously, it wasn't worth enough for them to change things up on their end.
mhm.
But I saw that I had some open time, and so I went and I did some of the things that they had wanted me to do, and that was good in terms of building relationship with the student and being like, yo, I've got to be in other places at certain times. It's not my call. This is established. So I go to where I'm supposed to be. There's nothing stopping you from coming to me. You can do that if you like. And here's the pocket of time I have. What can we get done in this pocket of time before I
Mhm.
need to be in the next place I'm supposed to be? Um, and you know what that was? Actually, that was, oh, I can just I'm done my supervision. I'm hungry. I can take my food with me. I don't need to be in one spot to do lunch. I can go, I can eat on the way. I made that choice. And then my favorite part of that is I reported back to the people that wanted me somewhere that I couldn't be, and I said, "Yo, this is what I did when I had open time to do it." And I was clear about I did this during the time that I could, not when you wanted, because what you wanted couldn't work at that time. Anyway, when one of my I call it a gift, some may call it a fault. If I'm given something to do and I'm given a deadline, I will do everything I can to make it happen. And if I can't make it happen, I have no problem telling you why it didn't happen. That's the other thing I'm seeing around me, that people struggle to admit or to make it known that they made an error, or there are things happening that they're in the background, but they need to come to the foreground.
Mm,
I kind of have no problem with that. And I don't do it as I try not to do it as like making excuses. I just say, this is what I did. I messed up. Um, I can fix it if you like. What do you want? Do you want me to go back and deal with it? Or do you want to take, like, what do you want? I made an attempt. I dropped the ball. It happens from time to time. That's why this didn't work. Or that's why this didn't happen. Because, it's that old adage that sometimes people spend more time and energy trying to fake out something rather than just say what happened and move on. And they spend more time on trying to trick people or trying to not do their job.
mm,
Forget that, man. This is what I did. It didn't work, or I didn't get to it because something else came up. I can still work on it if you want, or whatever. Um, anyway,
mm, mm,
I like to do my job. It's my
mhm.
job. I like to do my job. I like to do it well. But sometimes there are things out of my control,
Yeah.
and that's fine. It's out of my control. I'm not gonna lose my mind over that. I am finding tricks and tips though. I'm seeing patterns with certain people in how they operate and how I can operate with them in order to be able to do my job while they do theirs. It's funny, there are some people I never want to work with or talk to that
Mhm.
I have to because of my job. So that I'm trying to get better at that. I'm trying to get better at that. There are some really interesting situations that I've seen recently, um, from colleagues that I didn't know there was a mutual respect for. Like, I have respect for them. I didn't know if they had respect for me, but
Mhm.
there have been some situations where I'm like, wow, that person's actually treating me like a colleague, like a respected colleague. Um, that's brought a smile to my face. It probably like, why is Chidiak smiling while we're talking about this? And I'm thinking, this is awesome that we're having this conversation. Um, I think that has to do with second half of life, bro. I'm walking around, I'm thinking
Yeah.
that people must think I'm a effing weirdo. And that's okay. They're allowed to think that. But that brings a smile to my face because I feel like I'm in a I'm in another zone, and I'm operating within that zone. And it's okay. Like, it's okay for them to have their thoughts and their feelings. And I'm trying to get through my day. I'm trying to get through the day. I'm trying to be as helpful as possible, as effective as possible. Um, so it brings a smile to my face. And another thing, sometimes when I'm in the middle of these things, I am literally like, if I hadn't taken a couple of risks a few years ago, I'd still be in an elementary school classroom doing that work, which at the time was fine. But now where I'm at, I'm like, I'm really liking what I do. And it's so different than being in an elementary classroom. That also brings a smile to my face. Just how I've where I am is where I am, and it's neat to think that at one point this was nowhere on my radar. If you would have said to me, I have a crystal ball, Chidiac, and I see here, if you make these couple of moves, you could be in high school, in special education, doing a really interesting job. I'd be like, you are nuts. I'm not going to high school. Spec ed? No way, never. And here I am. Here I am in spec ed in high school. This kid the other day, yesterday, it's near the end of the day. I'm walking the halls. I see this kid that I always see. I don't know his name, but I've run into him on my supervisions over the years. He's fine with me. He doesn't do anything around me that's problematic. He goes, I'm like, yo, what's going on? He's like, not much, man. Happy Friday. I'm like, same to you. And he stops. He goes, yo. I'm like, yeah. He goes, where do you work in this building? He's like, what do you teach? I said, oh, I'm in special education. And then he kind of did like he was, I don't know what it was, but he just did this stop and look at me like, special education. I'm like, yeah, I work in 208. I write IEPs. I work with students and their learning accommodations. And he's just like, so foreign to him. He thought I was going to be like, oh, I'm a math teacher. But no, I'm like, no, I'm a spec ed. And he's just like, what? That's another thing I'm finding. My zone, being in spec ed, is for the kids that don't work with me. They're thrown off. They don't know what to make of that because I'm not in a room teaching content the way everybody else is. They
Hmm.
don't know what to do with that. But what do you teach? Well, this is the kind of work I do. So I'm not standing in front of you teaching a lesson like your other teachers are doing. I'm not doing that. But I'll help you with your English essay, or I'll help you with you know your herbs and spices slide presentation for hospitality, right? I always get a kick from the hospitality projects. I laugh. Breads around the world. I'm laughing. Kids are like, "What's your problem, Chidiac? Like, I got to get this done." I'm like, "Breads around the world. I'd love to do that assignment today." As a 49-year-old, spices and stuff around the world too. Yeah, like sign me up. They're like, "This sucks, man." I'm like, "Breads around the world, bro. Like, this is good eats. This is foodapalooza type research."
Exactly. Yeah.
And they're like, "I don't want to do this." I'm like, "Well, could be worse." They're like, "How could it be worse?" Well, you could be doing grade 12 math. And then they look at me like, I'm like, math is my enemy, so I'd rather be doing hospitality. Anyway, so I laugh, I think, when it's not appropriate to others, but to me it's like, man, look at where I am right now. This is kind of
Hmm.
whack. The universe has a sense of humor.
Hmm. Absolutely. I get asked that often too.
What do you do?
I'll
Teach?
yeah, yeah, because part of it is um I think part of it still is me coming out of community classrooms, despite I'm like the bearded guy at the school. They haven't seen students that have gotten support through our services, student services. I'm not a familiar. I have a very small crew, my classroom kids that I've supported, so they all know me. But that's like I got like 50 kids, and there's over 300. I forget what the number of exceptional students that we have at our school. So when I go into the resource rooms, because I'm still kind of running kind of a niche sort of support system, because I teach, because I have like what would be considered a full kind of schedule. I teach 2 periods, and I have a resourcing period, then lunch and prep. Some of my colleagues, they have full resourcing all day long, so they're not locked into a classroom, so they'll be in the resource room or they'll go to classrooms. Make sense? So because I'm actually teaching four of my six uh, four of my six FTE, my ratio is lower. So I only directly support the kids that I have in my classes. So when I go into the resource room and I just start helping a kid with an essay or their math, they'll turn to like, "Who are you? Like, what do you do?" And I'm like, "I'm a learning strategist." And they're like, "What's that mean?" I'm like, "I am highly trained to help kids learn." I said, I get the psychology behind it. I get your developmental challenges. I get, how your brain works, and I can help you help yourself with your learning. Like, oh, cool. I'm like, yeah, yeah, that's how I roll. And I could get up from helping a kid out with quadratics, get up and then go help a kid with their history research, and then go across the room and a kid's trying to develop their thesis. And so that's confusing to kids, right? Because wheelhouses are really important and lanes are really important. They want to understand you by your teachable. We do that to each other as well. Fellow teachers, what do you teach? And then once in a while they'll say, but like, what are you actually trained to teach? I'm like, hospitality and drama. They're like, what? Yeah, those are my degrees. I'm a former chef, and I have a drama qualification. They're like they don't have a way to put that together, right? I enjoy those moments. If anything, I like it to be on full and fluorescent or neon display, that there's more to us than meets the eye. Because usually they ask that question after I've delivered a really effective way for them to approach their learning. They're like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I could totally do that. I'm like, of course you can. Because I just customized it for you right in front of you. Like, it's like close-up magic. I did it for you right here, right at the table. So I like those moments. But that's what also got me thinking about, I'm not a spec ed teacher. That doesn't mean anything. But if I tell you I'm a learning strategist, then I can start to tell you what acumen I have that had led me to be so confident in, I can teach you to learn, I can teach you to study, I can teach you to self-advocate, and these are all learning strategies. I can teach you about character, some of this backbone operating system to what your what your school life is like. So that's my answer. And sometimes it confuses them, but they generally get at least part of it, because whatever I've just worked on with them, they can see right in front of them what my toolkit is. Are you a math teacher? No? Although that does make me kind of hopeful when they say stuff like that, that if they think that I just taught them math and what I've actually done is taught them a strategy, I think that's kind of a cool mix up. But it does make me wonder, like, are they wondering because, like, oh, I wish I had this guy as a math teacher, or they're saying, oh yeah, that's how Mr. Chidiak teaches, so you're obviously a math teacher. Or are they just kind of bewildered, like, you just taught me math, but I've never seen you teaching math. Who are you? And then I just disappear into the shadows. I love those moments. I like not being known. Like, it's almost like I like being off radar, and then just kind of like Navy SEAL, I'm there and then I'm gone. Get the job done and leave.
An added layer for me is that my son plays on a hockey team, and some of the people on the team go to the school I work at.
Mhm.
And so they've even said to my son, "What does your dad do there? Like,
Yeah.
what does he do?" And then he'll explain it the same kind of way I explain it, and they're like, "What? Like, what does he do?" They just can't. They they can't understand that. Yeah, I write IEPs. I meet with kids about their daily, like, attendance and their work and their successes and their failures, and I
Hmm.
work in a room where people can come and get support. Like, they just they're like, "Yeah, we know he's a teacher at the school, but what does he do?"
Hmm.
And he'll tell them, "This is what he does. That's his
It's
job."
a it's a really great, because you and I have talked about this in BC for Men, right?
Oh, how am I identified, or how do I identify myself?
Yeah, but just the whole idea of the importance of being known for who you are as opposed to what you do.
Mhm.
And I think that's kind of there's a cool mashup here. I don't have it completely organized, as I'm working it out as my mouth is moving. But I think in those moments, I don't, although I appreciate being identified as someone that's a learning strategist, that's something that I do. Um, Something that I'm trained to do. I do make sure while I'm in those moments, though, that the kid gets a sense of who I am. I am full of humor. I am compassionate. I am curious about what you're saying. I am present. I am serious. I am strange. I want the kid to have measures of that. I don't care if they remember my name or not. It's like I'm intentionally cloud seeding their emotional state so that when I do connect with them again later, I just have to be that guy that was there and helped out with the thing. And it's almost easier, I would imagine, on their behalf to not be burdened by my name. I'm just the guy. I'm that guy with the beard that he helped out with math and he just walked away. I kind of like being that guy. So there are times when it is important for people to know my name, but I'm pretty happy just being that guy.
Bro, this reminds me of when I was in high school and I would see the teachers who worked in the special education rooms. I didn't know, like, the rooms where students, they were community classrooms. It was community classrooms, but I didn't know that. I didn't know what it was
Mhm.
called. I didn't know what it was about. I just knew that from time to time I would see one of the EAs with a student riding his bike around the hallways.
Mm.
And I would see we had a student in a hospital bed that sometimes would get wheeled around the hallways. And there were a couple of teachers that I would see come in and out of that room, and I never really understood what they did. Even so, I'm putting myself in the shoes of the kids um, that see me as, who is this guy? Like, why is he working in that room? What does he do? He just comes in and out. I see him walking around. You know, nobody really knows his name. That's the other thing too. Like, nobody, unless you come to room 208, we don't really get to know each other.
So that element, so here's where, okay, being that guy, here's where it can be a problem. I can remember, I can remember back in the day when student success, it was pre, so there was money back in the day. I'm imagining your board was similar. Money from the government to provide specific staffing directed at student success. And they would allot a number of sections in their allotment to the school. And you would decide whether or not you had a full time student success teacher, or like they'd say, okay, you've got 6 sections, staff it as you see fit. Now you could give all 6 sections just to one person, and then you've basically given the 1.0 FTE to one person, or sometimes you divide it. So at the time, I think they gave us 8 sections. So I'm going the memory back. So there was a person that was the full time. They had all 6, and I had 2. So I just got 2 sections of student success. What I did with those 2 sections, I had one in each semester, was I always made that I was up, and I made sure I was up and moving and connecting and helping. And so I was on skates the whole period, because it was really important at that time for me to be that guy that was like a hummingbird in this room, because it was a room that it was a room that called the Wildcats Den. The other person that had the full time, the full, like they were there the other 3 sections of the day, became the guy that was noticed as only sitting at the desk. And there was sometimes comments that you would hear on the fly about, oh, that guy, all he ever does is sit there at the desk. And they think like that's what student success was, just to sit at the desk when there was kids in the room. Kind of like, like an on-call or a substitute teacher. And I was hyper aware that I never wanted to become that guy. I wanted to be the guy that you actually had to put your head in the room to find me. Like, where is the teacher? Oh, he's sitting over there on the beanbag. Oh, he's in the back corner at the filing cabinet. Oh, what's he doing? He's like lying on the floor with a student. Well, like I wanted to be that guy. It's funny when I think about the different guys that I've wanted to be. One of the guys that I want to be right now, and I'm not quite sure what the version of it is, but during my lunch, I during my lunch, I sorry, my prep, not my lunch. I open up, so my prep is on the lunch period for grade 9s and 10s. So I couldn't go and resource them if I wanted to. So the way that I run my prep is I open up my classroom and I'm in that room and kids do drop in. When I open the room, if when you walk in the room, there's a round table there right away as you walk in. It's the common social table. I will always sit on the opposite side facing the door so that as kids walk by, I'm that guy. I'm that guy sitting in that room, and I have usually some music playing. So I'm that guy sitting in that room with the weird music playing. But that's really important to me because part of it is I know I've already worked my full day, right? Because I've done my 2 periods and I'm like, I have like, I know that I've put in my time. So even if someone were to say, like, oh, he's always just sitting there, check my schedule. I already taught 2 full periods, ate my lunch. Now I'm opening up a classroom to sort of hang with kids that want to do drop in, doing the job. The stability, the optics of stability, and the open invitation. Whenever I look up and I smile, I say, hello, good to see you. The kids that have that pattern recognition, I'm starting to see the ones that intentionally come by the room just to say hello. And in some small way, by being that guy, I do believe I am providing a positive experience for those kids. Some of them have started to come in and hang out. So it's like this slow kind of like process. And these are kids that are not my kids. They're just kids that notice that guy saying hello, waving in that room with the plants and the weird music playing. It's spa music that I'm playing. So it's a lot of that kind of gong and like just kind of like slow. If you go and get a massage, it's the stuff that's being played, in the room. Um, however, I have chosen the specific color of noise frequency specific to calming tunes. Like it's not rock or dubstep or something. So it's funny when I think about the guy that I don't want to be and that guy that I do want to be. I will flex and use what's more useful. And one of my identities right now is being that guy that sits at that side of the table during that period, welcoming students into that room. And I take a lot of pride in maintaining that. And out of everything that I do in the day, I feel most compelled and passionate about making sure that I'm that guy because it's the accidental and incidental support structures that I think kids really hang on to. Yeah, I went and sat in 3-2-1 with that guy. He talked to me for a little bit. We listened to some music. I got up and I left. I want kids to be able to tell that story because I think about the times that I had that back at elementary and secondary where I can remember some faces, but I was able to be. Now, some of the people that were that guy or that gal, if we gender it back in the day, I did eventually learn their names. But sometimes it was just that guy in that space that I just felt good being in. Or I was able to feel neutral, but I didn't feel bad. I didn't feel stressed. I didn't feel impressed upon or any sort of predatory kind of feelings. I could just be in that room with that guy with that sort of weird experience that I still can't compartmentalize. Now, as an adult and understanding, developmental benchmarks and all that other kind of psychology and pedagogy, I get how all that science is a easier way to describe comfort and effectiveness. But I've met a lot of kids that just decided to poke their head in and make just a split second too long of a moment. I'm like, hey, how's it going? And then just slowly the head comes back into the door. They're like, hey, I'm like, good to see you. And chances are I've already seen them walk by a few times. So like, good to see you. I said, have a fantastic day. I said, anytime you're welcome to come and sit in here and relax during P4. Oh, what do you teach? That question sneaks in. I'm like, and I'll do the brief, bio of me. I said, I'm just in here doing some prep work. You're welcome if you just need a place to chill. You want to work on homework, you want to chat. I'm that guy. So I like it. I like this topic that you've sparked up in me. It makes me feel good about the work that I do. And there's nothing on my ticket that says a qualification OCT, that guy.
There should be. There should be an ABQ course for that guy.
Hmm.
That'd be cool.
Yep.
You know, hey, why are you applying for this job? So student success, spec ed, guidance. I've got an AQ in that guy.
Because I'm that guy.
Gary said he likes working in student success because students get to know who he is versus the subject title and the perception that goes with that subject.
It can be.
Yeah, it can be.
Absolutely. You're teachable. You're teachable is not you.
No.
I was using this example actually with the kids, and I have to work on the example. They were talking about school, and I said, you know what? School fits inside life, not the other way around. I said, life is this massive kind of map. One of your points on your map is school. I said, so who you are is so much more than just what you do at school. I was talking about it from the point of view of we're working on kind of a an adjusted SMART goal plan for the kids, just addressing goal setting. And whenever I address goal setting, I make sure to include the fact that because with the general template of SMART goals, you deal with complications and obstacles, and then you sort of look at, well, what are some possible solutions to it? I always very intentionally mention to the students that the obstacles that you face in school are just one version of obstacles. You can actually have, and we talk about, being hungry, angry, lonely, tired, these sort of larger life obstacles that can't be solved with school. Yet the impact plays out in school. So for whatever reason, you become homeless. That's not a school problem, but the energy of that will transfer to school. So I always make sure I let the kids know, like, what we're talking about here, what we're trying to sort of organize here are some of the challenges and obstacles that are specifically addressable in a school environment so that we can kind of maintain some control. But the fact of it is that school fits inside this larger context of life. And I always like to sort of mention that to the kids when we're talking about that kind of like there's more to you than sometimes what you allow school to see or even what school wants to see. If I go back to Gary's example, this idea that we're singularly identified by our teachable is a very safe space for some educators, and they will only stay there. I remember supporting a colleague with their AQ. I forget even now what I was there for. They asked me to come out. I think it was probably something about spec ed. And there were people in the room. I was talking about the importance of kind of what Gary was saying right here, letting the students get to know you. And there were several teachers in the room. These were all teachers within their first 5 years. So they were still fairly fresh. I had a teacher say, I leave my personal version of me at the door. I won't talk about what I did on the weekend. I won't talk about my favorite foods. They said flat out, all conversation is lensed through my teachable. I was like, okay. I said, that's not how I roll. I said, I'm a storyteller by nature. So I actually enjoy the stories more that I've lived outside of school than the ones that I've experienced in school. So I said, that's not how I roll, but I understand where you're coming from. Um, but if you spend time in student success or alt ed or special education or a community classroom, I think you start to realize that there's a fairly permeable membrane between, your life experiences and your classroom experiences. Um, and you kind of like, you grab a story or a moment from whatever's kind of like right there on the shelf in the moment, just so you can keep being that guy, really be keeping that guy. So I
An
like that comment. I
an
like that
added
comment from
an
Gary.
added layer for me has been when people find out, kids find out that I was in elementary for like 23
Hmm.
years. They're like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, I taught so and so's brother. I taught so and so's sister. Um, I know your parents because, right? Or this is the elementary school I went to. Oh, I worked there once." They're like, "What? When?" I tell them. They're like, "Really? No, you're lying." I'm like, "No, I'm not. But I'm not gonna sit here and try to prove it to you." Um, that's funny because they're like, "Where were you before you came here?" I was like, "Well, I did a really weird job." And, "Well, where were you before that?" "I was in elementary school." And they're like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah." And sometimes it comes up when in 208, I'm talking to a kid like they're in grade two. I'm like, "Why are you talking to me this way?" I said, "You're acting like the grade twos I used to teach." So I'm going to treat you like that until you can snap out of whatever this is and show me you're actually in grade 10. And then kids are like, it's grade 2. I'm like, yeah, for many years. One of my favorite grades. They're all like, what is going on here? That guy used to teach elementary, right? It's like
Hmm.
another layer of, wow, we really don't know what you're about. We really don't know what you do. I'm like, that's fine. Um,
I also know what the other thing that's kind of cool. You got me thinking about that long game too. How cool it would be. I don't know if you've had this, that you actually, I don't know if you had the chance or what happened, that you actually taught one of the kids in elementary and now you're teaching them in secondary.
there was, well, I'm trying to think in
That's
when
kind
I
of
was
cool. And that's a pretty niche experience, like ridiculously niche to sort of have that kind of overlap.
a kid that's currently at the school I work at. I was his re-engagement teacher. I
Mm,
was his re-engagement teacher. And this was a situation that ended up well because he was able to get back on track, and now he's a
got you.
successful he's in grade 10. So he's a successful grade 10 student. I worked with him when he was in grade 7. Um, so that's cool because when I see him in the halls or whatever, he'll look and he'll wave, and I can hear people say, "Who's that?" And I'm like, "Oh shit, kid. I don't know how you want to explain that. I don't know if you want to go deep on that or if you just want to say that's Mr. C. I remember him when he came to our school when I was in grade 7. Like I don't know how he wants to play that, but to me it's so cool that that is living proof of the work I did then, that
Mhm.
actually the plan, my role did what it was supposed to do according to certain people. You know what I mean?
I remember too how much you enjoyed becoming that guy. So in the spirit of that guy, um, when you started to kind of, I'll say, kind of embody your racialized side at school and noticing other individuals, like being that guy with the beard, being that guy from a Lebanese background. I think we'd have to probably go back to season 4 or 5 on that, when you were sort of talking about the importance of being that guy as well at the school. um, and some of the connective tissue that started to kind of expand out of that. And I mean, you shifted even that into helping other individuals kind of understand that there's more than kind of white folks here operating in this space. And that equity part of being that guy was such a beautiful expansion of your identity when you were talking about it. Um, and making sure people understood, like, there is more to me. Like, let's just go surface, there's more to me here, and I'm going to inform you, I'm going to educate you just a little bit, because you kind of need to know that guy too. And some of the stories you were telling about sort of connecting your affinity to some of the students that were coming through. I think one of them, I can't parse it completely, but noticing the kids in the hallway that sort of noticed you as being kind of different than the other teachers in the school. It's good.
One last one. There's a kid now in the high school that was a student at St. John's when I was
Mm,
there. So that's before high school, before re-engagement. I was at St. John's teaching grade 2, and
hmm.
this kid, I don't remember what grade he was in, but now he's in grade 9 in high school, and I'll never forget. He came up to me, said, "Hey, Mr. C, how's it going?" I said, "I'm good, man. How are you?" He's like, "Good." He goes, "Do you remember me?" I said, "I know that I never taught you in a classroom, but you do look familiar." He's like, "I went to St. John's when you taught at St. John's." And I'm like, "Okay, well, that's in Kitchener. What are you doing in Cambridge now?" And he's like, "Well, we moved." And then this was so to add one more cool layer, his name came up in a caseload meeting, and nobody at the table knew anything about him. I said, "I know something about him." And they all looked at me. They're like, "What?" I'm like, "He went to St. John's, da 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 da." They're like, "So you're telling us that he's a brand new grade 9? There was no transition meeting for him." I'm like, "No. His parents don't speak a lick of English. They moved." They found a new place to live over the summer.
Hmm.
Bam, he's in grade 9 at Benny's, and nobody knows anything about him because he went to a Kitchener school. And they're like, "Oh my God, how do you know?" I'm like, "He came up to me. He remembered me,
Yeah,
and I never taught him." But when you're in an elementary school, it's like family. Everybody gets
yeah.
to know everybody, right? So I probably was on duty and I treat him with respect and we joke around or whatever. And now he's like, "Hey, I know this guy." So again, yesterday actually, he was end of the day. I was standing in the hallway when the bell rang. He walks past me. He's like, "Hey, Mr. C, have a great weekend." And I can hear the people around him saying, "How do you know that guy? Who is that guy?" Right? It's like they don't even know who I
Hmm.
am. And then I can hear him talk about, like, as they're leaving, I can hear him talk about St. John's and blah blah blah. It is interesting, but what freaks me out the most are there are two students at the school, and I taught their brother, their oldest brother, when he was in grade 2 about a million years ago. And one of the kids plays hockey with my youngest. So when I see the mom, she's she's always like, "Mr. C, it's good to see you again." I'm like, "We see each other all the time. The kids are on the same hockey team." But to her, I'm Mr. C, who taught her eldest many years ago in
Yeah,
grade 2.
yeah.
The one day she was complaining about something, and she goes, "I know I can say this to you. You're a Catholic educator. It's going to stay between us." And I'm like, "What the F are you talking?"
Wait, well,
I'm a
it's
hockey dad right now,
I'm an
not like
educator. There's no confessional. There's no confessional.
Catholic educator.
Yeah, I know, eh? Yeah. Yeah, you don't get the confessional. I had I was standing outside, this was last week. I was standing outside our office. I was actually waiting to sort of like notice a kid that I needed to talk to. I knew their patterns, so they might be walking by. And I turn around and there's a young adult standing there. And they have a card and keys. I'm like, okay. And I can't place. I don't know what's about to happen, but they're pausing long enough that they were coming to see me. And they call me out. They're like, "Mr. Clough." I'm like, "I am." And they said their name, and they said, "Do you remember me?" I'm like, "Oh," I said, "This is the moment that I fear." I fear. I said, "I've now been teaching long enough I've met enough people and enough amazing people that I've started to forget names." And they're like, "That's fine." Said, "You haven't seen me in about 10 years." I was like, "Okay." So that puts me all the way back at that would have put me just back at Williams. And so right away, okay, I'm like, I got portfolio. I'm like, Alt Ed. I don't remember from Alt Ed. I was teaching hospitality. I'm like, maybe hospitality. She said, you had me in hospitality. I'm like, okay, cool. And then she said her name. And I was like, I don't remember specifically. I said, give me some more. And as she told her story, I started to remember she was the first student that I knew that at the time had an ELL designation. Her and her family had just moved into the area. Um, she was sort of like of grade 13 age, but they were still trying to figure out equivalencies. And as it happened, this happened sometimes, my class, the grade 11 culinary class, it was a spot that because there was a life skills element to it, there was a hands-on element to it, that we could always sort of massage the paperwork if the kid could demonstrate the overalls, right? And she said, basically, everything she said about her experience in that class was all about being that guy. It was all about who I was, not what I did. And I just sat there and I started to choke a little bit. I'm like, man, I said, I am so happy that I represented well. I said, because as soon as you put me back 10 years ago, I said, I do a little bit of I wasn't as good of an educator as I think I am now. And as she said, my response to, you taught me 10 or 11 years ago, my only thing that I kind of burbled out was, did you have a good experience? She's like, oh, yes. She said, yes, yes, yes. Because she had a very serious, I know a little bit about the culture from which she comes. And what I've noticed is that they tend to present a little bit more serious. It takes a little bit of while to sort of crack the smile. So I was like, oh, crap, look, what's about to happen here? Um, And as they were describing it, they're now a they're at Seneca. They're training to be a CYW. They never ever said any of that experience. Ever that experience has led to their success now. She wasn't giving me that. All she was doing was like the drop in. I just wanted to tell you, you taught me 10 or 11 years ago. I had a good experience. I saw you and I wanted to say hello. I'm like, you made my day. You made my day. Because it kind of puts some accreditation to my attempts to be that guy. The name wasn't as important as just that experience. She goes, I said, do you remember butchering the chicken? Yes. Do you remember making bread on the first day? Yes. Do you remember when we did the sushi lab? Yes. I'm like, that's all I need. That's all I need. I was like, that is a very cool connection. And I told her, I said, you made my day. I said, thank you for this. This is kind of cool. But just an affirmation of the importance of being that guy, right? Being that guy. It also did make me kind of like, man, we did some cool stuff in that class. We did some really cool stuff in that class.
Even as I listen
So,
to you talk about it, I'm like, geez, that's the hospitality class I want to be in.
and I was just beginning to leverage technology. So at the time we were using, we didn't do Google Sites. I think we were using, was it Blogger? What was the Google platform?
For blogging, for
Blogger?
it was Blogger, yeah.
Was it Blogger? So I had them using Blogger and they were using media in the class and I would post videos onto my Blogger site about, like I was using it like Google Classroom. I probably still have those videos of chicken butchery. I set up like a video camera, like a little, like not the phone version, but like remember when the little portables were like almost like a little tablet, but it was just an HD recorder.
Yeah.
So I had like two broomsticks mounted and facing right down on the table, and I videoed the chicken butchery, and then shared that out. Yeah, yeah, cool. Was it or Blogspot? Blogger or Blogspot?
It may have been called Blogspot to start. Now it's called Blogger.
We're going way back in the day, eh?
Way
So,
back.
anyways, yeah, it was that's where she put me right back in that moment, making the bread. Oh man, growing herbs in the classroom. It was cool. It was like a gift. It was like she sort of transported me back just by talking about that stuff. And then she's like, I gotta go. She was covering a class. She's working in the school, right? She said, she's doing her master's in sociology or something like that.
Gary says he
Yeah.
enjoyed teaching with people that he taught.
Yeah, that's happening too. When I went, same class, Brittany, Brittany, I'll say her name because she's a teacher in our board now. When I went from Access, when I was teaching, I was in the program for suspension and expulsion. I jumped to a school that's almost like the farthest west in our school up by Wonderland, and I jumped into their intensive autism. And I guess when it was announced there that I was coming in, I got this random email, seemed like a random email from Brittany. She's like, yo, Clough, I hear I'm going to be your mentor. I'm like, what? So she was the classroom teacher. I was the prep coverage. So the class intensive, so she had the students for whatever it was, number of periods a day. And then on her prep, they would come to me in the kitchen beside the classroom and I would give them, we would did culinary skills. But she was a kid. She's now, a grown ass adult, kids of her own. But she was my mentor teacher there in my first step into an autism intensive classroom, and it was great. Like that, not only to teach alongside, which I will say, it sounds like what Gary was saying, but I was dependent on her to show me the ropes. I turned into the mentee, right? So, um, and she still, for the first while, called me Mr. Clough, which was like trippy, right? We're now colleagues. We're now colleagues. So that was that point. So that was about 8 years ago. That was 8 years after I hadn't seen her in 8 years. So I didn't actually know where she had gone off to as she graduated because she had taken the grade 11 culinary as well. So I got to work with her one semester. So trippy, man. I gotta go, dude. What time
I
is
should,
it?
I should. It's almost 10.
We dropped in. That's good.
We did
That's
drop in.
good.
Okay, well, that's it. We're done.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, sorry. I'm not trimming. You want to drop into yes, yes. But if there's something you want to drop into, I
No,
could
I'm
do a few
good.
more minutes.
Thanks for your time. Gary and Rochelle, thanks for joining us as well. And anybody else who's listened in, um, thanks for
I do have
chatting.
one more thing. One more thing. I'm kind of cheesed. So remember a week ago Friday, I had the personal day, I signed out for the personal day, that thing that we get, right?
Mhm.
And I was in Whitby, went to Thermea Spa there. And it's almost like the algorithm messes with your mind a little bit because this past week I keep getting advertisements for Crave Donuts, which is in Whitby, which I would have gone to.
You didn't know?
I didn't remember. I didn't connect the dots. So now I have to kind of like pattern that somewhere that the next time Karen and I go for a getaway, whatever, to that spa, that I have to swing by. So there was someone that's been on our podcast that's from Whitby. They hung with us a lot last year. And I can't remember our association or our connection. I think they're maybe connected to somebody with me that they know, but they're out of Whitby. And they were with us last year a lot on the pod. They were dropping in. I just forget their name, but they were coming to us out of Whitby. Helen? No. Helen? Ugh, I don't remember. Anyways, Crave Donuts. And so even this morning before we went live, Crave Donuts is advertising a bunch of stuff. I'm like, good on them. An independent donut shop still open. Yeah. So that's all I'm thinking.
Gotcha.
There
That's
we
a good
go.
one to end with.
Donuts, baby.
This was season 9, episode 13, number 361 of the Decoded Podcast. Have a great day.
Peace, brother. Have a good one.